Ross and Aimee are roller skating. Yeah. Around the house. Jogging. Let me put a little, you know what? I'm going to put some roller skating music. And...
Put it down, Ross. We forgot music.
So, hi everybody, welcome to the re-release of Lace Pyrite, Letters from Two Gardens. We just chilling, so welcome, have fun, and if you got roller skates, slap them on. We're gonna do, why not?
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody! Thank you so much. Ross, did you get tired?
No, I got tired of seeing myself roller skating. That's all.
But we did not, and we are the audience.
I know, you were waiting for me to fall. You're like, come on, it's getting better every second.
The audience wants to see more bubbles towards the end, so we'll have to more bubbles from you. They don't want to see me; they want to see you. We had a close calls before we even got started, but we're so glad you're here. Thank you all. I know everybody's so zoomed out, so we really, really appreciated it.
Yeah, really glad. And glad also to have this book back in the world. We were saying to Roberto, like how lucky we feel that they were willing to pick it back up for us, because it's been out of print for a while now, and people ask about it sometimes. So it's just feels so lucky that you all could step in and take care of that for us. Help. Yeah.
And I was just speaking to Ross and Aimee and letting them know that by the end of the week, we'll make an ebook version available for folks to be able to pick up a copy and read it however and wherever and whenever they like. This has been a busy spring for Get Fresh Books. Not only did we have the pleasure and honor of re-releasing Lace Pyrite, which has this awesome author photo in the back. I think this picture is the greatest thing I have ever seen. It is amazing. It's full of such joy and beauty. I can't wait for you guys to hold it in your hand and be able to see the picture, because it's beautiful. But we've also released Darla Jimenez's first full-length collection, Cleave, which we celebrated just over the weekend, right? We've also released a beautiful anthology of poetry, photography, and artwork called Divine Feminist. And it is an anthology of poetry, right, and art by women and non-binary folks. And the poetry is just, beautiful themes, ranging from womanhood to queerness to being non-binary to sexual freedom and liberation, to not being judged, to just beauty, right? It's phenomenal. We'll also be releasing all these books on ebook down the line. We also released Brucel Yolanda Acosta's book, Things to Pack on the Way to Everywhere. And this is just again, these collections, not just because I published them, but they are wonderful works of poetry dealing with everything that's going on in our lives right now. You can't go wrong. Please visit our shop and check us out. I think you'll enjoy what we have to offer. A few more people, I'll admit all, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So we didn't want to read super long bios and all that stuff. I think we wanted to just kind of keep it very organic, but we do want to talk about the books that Ross and Aimee have out in the world now, right? Aimee has this wonderful essay collection called World of Wonders in Praise of Fireflies, Whale Sharks, and Other Astonishments, published by Milkweed Editions. And Ross, this book is in an envelope somewhere outside in a stack of mail that I have piled up for the last couple of weeks that I have not been able to get to, right? Otherwise, I would be holding it up. And Ross's book, Beholding, I'm sorry if it looks a little banged up, Ross, but it's because I throw it across the room after reading a couple of pages, because it's so damn good. I'm like, what is this shit? It's too good, right? I do that with all my favorite poets. So, don't take it personally, Aimee, when you see your book banged up also as well. In any event, these wonderful books are out in the world alongside with the re-release of Lace Pyrite. And what we want to do tonight is just to let Ross and Aimee read some poems from Lace Pyrite and have a bit of a conversation about it, and just kind of really organically flow into, you know, whatever happens. They do this all the time. They're gonna do a roller skating trick contest, I think. No, they're not gonna do it. In any event, I'm going to, oh my gosh, I gotta keep admitting people, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna ask you guys to unmute. I'm gonna pause the music. Bear with me while I multitask. There we go. And then I'm gonna try this spotlight feature and see who's going first. Ross? Aimee?
We'll kind of go back and forth. Aimee, I think you're up first, right?
Yeah, are we gonna do the thing where we start with spring?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's start with spring. So just as a quick intro to everybody, Lace Pyrite started out as letters, and we'll talk more about this later, back and forth. This is epistolary poems about our respective gardens. I'm now in Oxford, Mississippi, but the gardens that I'm writing about here were from when I used to live in Western New York, and then Ross's were in Bloomington. But I think even now, the gardens that you were talking about in here, right, Ross? You have new gardens and things like that now. So yeah, and we started a full year kind of keeping track of what's going on in our garden. And it starts in summer, but because it's spring, it feels like summer today here in Mississippi, but I think we'll start with spring. And then so we're kind of starting in medias res in the middle of this chapbook. And then we will chat. And then I think we're gonna have some questions later too. So be thinking about whatever you want to ask us a little bit later as well. So I'll start with spring. And each of us, we wrote a poem to represent the season over the course of a year. So, and I just happen to start in spring. No shadows here, only mud. Praise the caked up trowel, hand rake, and grass scissor. I want to kiss each crumble of sun-baked earth as my sons welcome iris and drunk ants whirl rush over each juicy peony bud. After warm rains come the spring peepers shivering out of the mud and sitting half in, half out of a puddle. You must know the bees have come early this year too. I see them visit aster, sweet williams, bleeding hearts, and azalea blossoms hardy enough to not have crisped with the last late frost. Whatever light bees give off after the last snow, I hold up to you now. I cannot explain the click step of beetles. You are on your own for that. But I grew up with patience for soil and stars, lace and pyrite. I believe in an underworld littered with gems. In another life, I have to. Sometimes I lose track of all the bees and their singing. You thought I said stinging.
Maybe you're right. Let us stop explaining. I saw those ants too. Soon they'll slurp caves into the handful of apples that come on the pipsqueak tree out back, or scurry dizzy on the sugar, glazing the sweetest bean I've ever tasted, the beans themselves tonguing through the spent cherry bush. Terrified as I am, and I am, the bumblebees furrow the pursed and purple lips of false indigo for the dusty blush, and I want to go make a hallelujah of my own simple body. Not to mention the cup plants just coming up out back can hold mouthfuls of wet despite the months-long drought. All is never lost. Some of what remains of my father swims amidst the breathing roots of the plum tree. You could almost see him look out from the leaves' stomata in spring, or his fingerprints pressed into the delicate whorls of the young bark. And when the tree makes its first fruit next year, or the next, it won't only be in dreams he's back. I think I too will be so lucky someday. Someday, I think, so too will you be.
All right. Summer. Gosh, it's so good to hear your voice on this. I haven't heard these poems in so long. I've read them so much, but I hear your voice so much in them. All right, we're into summer now. The plump and pink language of coneflowers is not found in any dictionary. No translations available, not even from a country with no apples. And now you've left me trying to recreate a kiss of questions and fruit peel and grain under the arches of snowball hydrangea. Even in this drought, I go back to the garden so often because I don't know yet how to function in a world without my mother. I learned from her how to make it teem with life, even when a lack of a decent rain seems to nudge us towards 100,000 little deaths, if you count each crispy blade and beetle shell. After a fox or squirrel visit, I sometimes find a ruined blue eggshell under a robin's nest, but the yard never lacks their happy song. Cheer up, cheerily, cheer up. You say all is never lost, but how exactly do robins know what first new branch to land on without a guide? How did you? How did they learn to snip twig and bits of cloth to pad their own nests? Someday I want to return to the place where you've scattered hay underfoot, the place where, when you least expect her, a marbled cat comes singing of an invisible and delicious thirst. And one day, it'll become clear you've smelled the sickly sweet song of Coleraine bee balm before. You'll remember the invisible lemon in your palm, and you'll remember this sad, soft question.
Above me, around me, swirls the constellation of bees chasing fall's last flush. The crook-necked aster bent over near the brush pile. The sunchokes plowing through it, goldenrod and some tiny grin of a plant whose name I do not know, purse their frilled mouths. On the lip of the hive and in the scrub beneath, it looks like more lust, pairs of bees snugged cheek to cheek. They twirl and flip, while above them, it looks like to me, the day to day goes on. Usually one of them flying away and the other still or moored on the other side, maybe clutching upside down a stem of clover. I put my finger down to one of the broken, trapped in a thicket of grass, and she reaches her tiny legs, touching a few times before crawling up to the back of my hand, her wings shredded to lace, stammering like an engine not turning over. I hold her very close to my face, the galaxy turning all around us, turning us all around.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Aimee, I forgot how it kind of goes in toward the end.
I know, right? Like, boy, when I said, oh, we're starting in medias res, I forgot, like, oh crap, this is where we talk about our parents dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I heard you laugh on it. I realized as I was saying it out loud, that's the first time I said it out loud since World of Wonders came out. That's the first time I ever put my bird calls in a poem or anything like that. And now I do bird calls all the time in essays. But that's that moment when I was doing a robin. Yeah, it just struck me right now, like, oh, I've done that before. I didn't realize I was doing that in these epistolary poems with you. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of an amazing thing, just 2014. So we were writing these poems. Is it okay if we just kind of talk a little bit? Is that okay? Yeah.
Sorry, we just started.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Go for it. I don't want to like interrupt your flow. And before, because I think it's important for folks, you know, I had a moment in reading these poems. I was reminded of a moment when I realized, oh my God, I'm transforming my backyard into a garden. There's food or something growing in every corner. And there was a moment where I realized that organically I was part of this world. When I'm reading your work, you guys are like, you're there, right? Like you're not only this world is you, you are this world. And it reminded me of the moment when I realized that I was doing some kind of meditative exercises in the yard and the animals weren't leaving.
Hmm.
It was like 4 bunnies just kind of roaming around. There was like blue jays and cardinals and little orioles and finches, and they were just all over. And I was there doing these kind of like meditative Tai Chi style exercises, and they weren't leaving. They were totally comfortable with me there in that space with them, and everything I had, it was like a Disney movie and shit. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, as I read the poems, I'm like, man, I wonder what that moment was. If you had that moment when you were like, they know I know the sacredness of this. The animals kind of recognize that I recognize that this shit is sacred. You know? So I don't know if you guys were gonna go there, but it's been that's been haunting me, or you know, occupying my mind from the minute I read through these poems. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that in terms of sacredness, like what I was going to say is that like 2014, that was around, you know, one of the things that's, I don't know, to me, it's so kind of neat to remember, oh, that's right. Every poem is practice for another poem, you know?
Yeah.
So I could hear, oh, this is where I was working through stuff for this next thing. And I was working through stuff on this for this next thing. But the cat, the marbled cat that you referenced, that cat's now gone. You know, and I remember when Jean Valentine came out, she heard that, you know, we had a, so Jean, a lot of us on this call right now, we're at Drew together, and Jean was there. And one time Jean just reached over and she was like, hey, I got to come see your farm. And I said, I don't have, I said, I work with people on an orchard, but I have a garden. And so she's like, yeah, come on. And so she came out, but we had these conversations about this experience that I had with bees, et cetera. But that conversation, I think is in that poem at the end there with the bees. I was like, oh, I think Jean, who was also just recently left here, was also in there. And then I also think about, like, I see Lisa Winovich out there, and I see Kathy Engel, like people who I've like, as a young gardener, someone learning things. And I remember Lisa was like a farmer, and like just learning things, just talking a little bit and being like, I'm a student to all these people who have been in such deep study of like the sacredness, you know, like just being a friend and listening and like saying things, and someone be like, well, I don't know about that. And maybe it's a little bit more like this, you know? So, but then I also know, Roberto, like, I think you and I have emailed about gardening, you know, and Judith Vollmer, you know, like we would kind of like do these little, you know, emails about gardening when you were starting out and showing pictures and all that. So just like these lineages that run in all these ways, to me, I don't know exactly what I'm saying, except to say that those multiple directional lineages are the sacred to me, are some of the sacred to me, you know?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like I can remember even just small friendships. Gosh, I mean, you're exactly right. With people, I can, and that's kind of the magic of poems, right? I can almost like remember the first times I would show this to, you know, to some of my close readers who were not you, and be like, I think we're going to make a chapbook out of this, you know? And some of those people I just kind of lost touch with, or, you know, or not as, I don't know if I'd show them my work now or whatever, you know, and nothing ill will, just we go in different directions, you know? And what I would see in just even feeling this out, like we, you know, you, Ross, you and I, we didn't start out to be like, we're going to write a chapbook together. It was very much like kind of garden reports. Yeah. And so you talk so beautifully about the connectedness of humans throughout this collection. But I think that going back to your original question, Roberto, I think for me, anytime I have that moment is when it's easy. I can, you know, I can kind of pick up on that because it's a direct response, in particular with birds for me. Like when birds call back to me, and that's something that I talk about in World of Wonder. It sounds like the dumbest humble brag in the world, but I have been able to talk to birds since I was little. Like my girlfriends call me Snow White, like they, you know, like the Disney thing, like, and it's, and I owe that all to my dad and my mom, honestly, from teaching me how to be still and how to be quiet in the garden. And so the direct response of knowing when I hit that moment is when the birds are talking back to me and then cocking their heads, waiting for me to respond back to them. And I have no idea what I'm saying to them, of course, at all. And I also want to be clear. Every time I say something like this, I get like angry emails from ornithologists, truly, who are just like bird splain and be like, yeah, it's not how a robin talks, and I'm like, I know, but all I can tell you is that that's how they talk to me, and that's how I talk with them. And I have witnesses. It's the dorkiest, party trick in the world that birds come into my backyard when I call them. So I don't know what to tell these people. So don't email me with like, don't bird for me tonight. But yeah, I've had this moment since I was 6, and I have that from my mom and dad, who taught me how to be still in the garden. And so in those poems that we were reading, Ross, gosh, I don't even know how we got into that. That's the first moment I can pinpoint. That's the first moment where I've ever, and both my parents are alive, still alive, thank goodness. And that's the first time I even like mentioned the possibility of them leaving this earth in a poem. And I would not have been able to do that had I not had my friendship with Ross, who I know has lost a parent, anyway. So I just, it's something that just struck me as we were reading it out loud. Like I was in my poems, like asking him for advice, like, how are you writing about your garden and your dad? I don't even know how I'd, like, I literally don't know how I'd function, that kind of thing. And who I don't think I had a friend at that point in my life that I could ask that. And I don't think I could have asked Ross that just on the phone, but I asked him that through this epistolary poem. And his answer was so beautiful, coming back. And yeah, you see echoes of that answer, Ross, in Catalog of a Bachelorette, like, of course you not only just survive, but you thrive in the garden with the memory of your dad, anyway, just something I kind of noticed just reading it out loud and hearing your response to my spring poem. How do I make a nest? How do I learn how to make a nest when the person who taught me this might be gone, at that time? So anyway.
Yeah. Can I say one thing about the sacredness too?
Multiple things, please.
Because that cat, Ginger, that was my friend. And Ginger's gone on her way, but Ginger used to hang out and like come into the garden, and Ginger slept over a lot. She was like a bestie, and she lived like the next door over.
I was gonna say, it wasn't even your cat, right? It was
no. My friend. She was my friend, yeah. But she would like run, and I'd be bent over on the garden, and she'd jump up on my back, and then she'd kind of ride around the garden on my shoulder. So we were tight, and then I remember, but you could tell like Ginger would come, she had a certain kind of trot, and one of her trots was the trot of having just killed some people. And she was trotting one day. She was trotting one day out the window, and I was like mostly naked. I was like in the morning, it was like I was coming out of bed, and I was like, I saw her trotting up the house. I was like, fucking Ginger. So I ran out of the house, and she approached, and I saw she had a bunny in her mouth. So I threw a crock at her, a crock, a garden slipper for those of you cool enough not to know what a crock is. And then so the cat, so the bunny gets out of her mouth. Ginger runs, pins it. I throw the other crock. I'm in like my shorts and like, that's it. And barefoot. I'm not good barefoot. Like I need shoes. So I'm like, so Ginger, like the bunny takes off. Ginger takes off after the bunny, like looking back at me. The bunny runs up the street, up the sidewalk. And I swear to you, Ginger's closing in on the bunny. And these 2 blue jays come after Ginger.
Wow.
Ginger is a badass, and Ginger's like, whoa, what the fuck's going on? The bunny runs out of the way, and then Ginger looks back at me and was like, and I'm like, that's sacred. That's the sacredness of the garden. Roberta's gonna ask me this question in like 12 years, and that's what I'm gonna say.
And that blue jays are vicious birds.
They're tough.
They are vicious birds, right?
They're tough.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. There's some questions here, and I'm gonna get to the questions. But Aimee, you brought up catalog of unabashed gratitude, and there's such beautiful elegies in there. And it's amazing how it I guess it continues to be communicated. It becomes such a part. It's just an observation. I don't know if there's a question here or whatever, but how, you know, we plant things, we grow things, we nurture things, right? And we know that these things have a cycle. They have like this cycle, right? And for me, gardening and growing things and I guess appreciating them while they're bearing fruit or just being beautiful or knowing they're it has made accepting or dealing with or living with grief daily um you know, something, right? It has made living with grief, I'm not gonna say easier or no cheesy shit like that, but it has, you know, it is a part of this universal sacredness. Here we go with the sacred again. Damn, I threw that word out there. Now we're hit with it, Ross. We hit Ross and Aimee. It's crazy. But it's like, right, it's that bearing with it, and it's a season of so many books being written that are elegiac and because of the pandemic and all this stuff. And wow, that just, you know, you guys communicating and talking about that, right? If you
Well,
have
one of the things I want to say too, like one of the beauties about I think what Aimee's new book, her work, but the World of Wonders, part of it is like, you know, there's a way that the kind of poems which are, you know, devotionals to these wonders, but there's also this constant one of the threads in this book that is so beautiful is that the folks are the ones who gave the writer the ability to see what is wonderful, the ability to sort of hold the wonder. And it's, you know, and that's you know, those kinds of, to me, kind of tributes or like gratitudes are also acknowledgements that we move in time and space, like we change over time and space. And so one of the ways that we I don't know, you know, like there's an element of mourning in saying thank you. An element of mourning and saying thank you. You know, it's a kind of a celebratory mourning where you say thank you because this will not always be like this. This group of people on this Zoom thing right now, this will never happen again. You know, and we can be like, we can kind of mourn that, and maybe one of the ways we mourn that is by laughing together. You know. But anyway, I wanted to say that's one of the things that I think is so beautiful about your newest book. That's not this book that we're talking about, but is it does that so beautifully, and it's your folks.
Thank you. I mean, yeah, you know me. Like I was a mess this past summer. I mean, we were all a mess. Summer of 2020, you know. But one of the things I was telling Ross on our like little Zoom check-ins was like, this is before it ever came out. This was like June or so, June, July. I hadn't yet seen the book, hadn't held it in my hands. I was like, honest to goodness, I was willing to deal with whatever devil there was, like, just let me get this book. Oh, I'm gonna cry, but let me just get this book into my parents' hands. Because at that point, I didn't know when I'd see my parents again, if I'd see my parents again. You know, my mom's 83. And in the throes of COVID, when we could not travel, period, you know, in Florida, where they are, was kind of a hot mess. It still is a hot mess. But that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. And it was, I didn't even know if they would read it. I just wanted them to see it. I wanted to have their names. I just wanted them to see it. Like I was listening. I was not the bratty teen rolling my eyes at you. I had learned your bird calls even when I said I thought it was dumb. And they got, so that was it. When I was able to put that in their hands, that's all I wanted. Anyway, I haven't, you know, Ross is one of the few people that I was able to share that with, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I hope I makes this list or whatever. I mean, like we were in the throes of the pandemic. There was a point, Ross knows this, he can vouch for me. I didn't even know I didn't know if publishers would even be open, if printing presses would be open, you know, that kind of thing. Like, I just was like, I've worked on this for 10 years. I just want, the only two people I want to see this are my parents. And they did. So anything else is gravy. And I would not have been able to share my hopes and dreams like that. I mean, yeah, I could see the origins of this from our chapbook together, of just being able to be in that kind of vulnerable space for me as a writer, to acknowledge that we won't always be here, but there's so much, again, I'm hesitant to say, well, no, I'll say it. There's so much joy and there's so much gratitude to be had, even at the same time acknowledging that it won't always be that way, or it would just be changed. It's going to be different. So I don't know. Yeah, I just love that, Ross, what you said. That's one of you've said it before in different interviews and stuff that I've read, where grief, or acknowledging that all of us here on the Zoom is not that we won't be here again together in this exact spot. That, to me, that would be like, oh my gosh, that's horrifying, that's terrible, and that's so sad. But there is something celebratory about that, like that we were here in the first place, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, that's joy to me. And Gail asked a question about like, what's a hallelujah? Hi, Gail.
Yeah, go for it. What do you think is a hallelujah?
Well, I think that's one of the things, and I don't know that when we were writing this book that I would have articulated it like that. But one of the and I don't know. I know there's a word. Someone knows like what hallelujah actually means. I don't know what that actually means, but I kind of, I know what I mean when I say it ish. Yeah. But is that sort of like the acknowledgement that we will not all be here, that this will not convene again, to me is the source actually of joy. And that's the hallelujah is acknowledging that. It's the sort of luminosity when we acknowledge, oh, we will not all be together again. My God, like, what do you do then? How hard do you love then? That's the hallelujah, and I think the garden teaches you that too, to some extent, because things go away. Like, things go away. And you get to watch that every year until you won't watch it again.
Yeah. That's exactly it. The garden teaches us that, right? Like, no matter what blooms or what cracks out of their chrysalis, it's gonna go away. So you could just celebrate it, or you can just, like, I don't know, I've just never been in a state of mourning in a garden, even though I know that at the end, come November, it's done, that kind of thing. So that's such an interesting comparison, Russ, to to trace that back to gardening. We're tending all these things knowing full well that they're not going to last, that at some point they're all going to go away, that no matter how many milkweeds I plant, no matter how many chrysalises come out, the butterflies don't hang around. they leave, and what a joy that is. That is exactly, that's perfect. That's the hallelujah.
There's that idea of once in a lifetime. It's almost like expressing once in a lifetime, never again, is a Japanese idea, and it's a word. It's isho ni ichido. It is once in a lifetime, never again. So treasure this. This, right? This, you elevate it to a point where it's like, to kind of just piggyback, because there's a question about like kind of craft and revision and stuff that I think we'll get to. But there's this wonderful question by Mandana Chafa, and she asks, I'd love to hear your thoughts, if any, about nature and unexpected environments. Because Ross, you mentioned community gardens, and Aimee, I'm sure you have experience with them as well. As well as this juxtaposition with cities. We have so many remarkable community gardens. That friction of city garden seems essentially poetic to me. And I think she's kind of interested in hearing some of your thoughts, or maybe even experiences or moments in the community garden.
Ross, do you want to talk about the orchard stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I could. And like, one of the things that I feel like I can hear a little bit in that question, I'm gonna identify with that, whether or not it's there. I'm identifying with something that I'm gonna put into your question if it's not there, but it might be in there, which is that the divide between the natural and the quote unquote non-natural it's a fabrication to me, and it's a troublesome fabrication. So going to nature is like, yeah, I get it. I understand that. But on a certain kind of level, like what the question sort of suggests is that, I think one of the practices or the wonderings is like how to sort of understand that we're constantly in the natural world and that we are the natural world. Like we once we sort of imagine ourselves not the natural world, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good. So anyway, I've helped out with this community garden here for 10 years. It's 10 years old now, and it's just an amazing project. And it's like right across from the YMCA, and it's across from a big, this is a community orchard. It's across from a big community garden and baseball fields nearby. So it's kind of like a lot of action over there. But it's just, it was the project, it was the idea of a woman named Aimee Countryman, who's actually our neighbor, and so we see her most days walking by with her crew or whatever. And she just wondered about what it would mean to, as an undergraduate, she wrote a thesis. It's so funny because I feel like I was probably at the beginning of this with like when Kathy and Darla and Lisa and all you, like, well, I was probably talking about this when I was like, hey, there's this thing going on. Lynn, like all of you. Anyway, she wrote a paper as an undergraduate. I'm just going to do a very quick biography of the orchard. She wrote a paper as an undergraduate, and the paper was about food security, the urban canopy, the trees managed by the city, et cetera. She found that, like, very few of the trees that were managed by the city were food producing. What would it mean if we had an orchard? Yada, yada. The urban forester in the city allowed her to do it. If she showed support, if she could get support, she got support, big call out meeting, tons of people came. Then we got into the most ragtag, the most, just like janky ass bunch of committees to put together this orchard. And it was the most beautiful, inefficient thing you ever saw. I mean, we would have once a week board meetings. No one knew what it meant to be on a fucking nonprofit. No one knew what it meant to be like, to have like an efficient, no one knew what a fucking agenda was. It was so beautiful. It was just like impossible. We couldn't have done it for long unless we would have, but we all would have died in each other's arms. It was just like a mess. And we would cook really good food and eat slowly and like debate everything. And like, it was heaven, it was heaven. I just want to say that. And it was sloppy as hell. And just like, I keep remembering me and my friend Stacy, who's a farmer. She's a fucking proper farmer. She's not like a nonprofit person. She's a farmer. And I was just like a writer, and I don't know, I taught and whatever. I didn't know shit about fucking nonprofits. Excuse me, my language gets a little bit amplified when I start thinking in this way. But so we had to write a contract for the city. We were supposed to write a contract for the city. It was just the most ridiculous thing. I can remember we're sitting in my office, like working on a contract, looking on the web to see like, what is a contract? Like, how do you do it? And we're writing this thing, and it was just horrible. It was the most beautiful shit ever. Anyway, the orchard's there. Whenever you come to Bloomington, like, call me or text me and we'll go there, or go whenever. It's always open, but it's always free. It's always open. It's a place where, they make some fruit and stuff like that, but that's not the product. The product is actually the coming together. The product is the gathering that it sort of foments, that's what the orchard's about. And it's a space, where, we get to tend things. Like, maybe if we don't think of ourselves as tending trees, we get to go there and kind of learn how to do that. And in this way, to go back to that question a little bit, that beautiful question, to maybe start to realize, oh, the tending of trees is something that I can do, and that, maybe I can teach someone else to do. And all of the ways that tending trees sort of makes you think about, oh, I'm not that much different than a tree, or the best parts of me are like a tree, those kinds of things. That's my story. You go, Aimee. Sorry, it's a little long.
No, that's good. I love, gosh, and to think, I think that orchard was brand new when we started this, I think. So just even thinking that the person who put this in motion was an undergrad, that's such a rock star kind of project to do. Yeah, no, I'm trying to think of the original question here. I mean, yeah, I think I just would co-sign everything you said, Ross. Absolutely. I think both of us are full well aware that we have gardens and a yard now, but that was absolutely not always the case, but I would also say that, as a kid growing up, um, there were a few years where I lived on my mom was a psychiatrist. And so we lived on the grounds of these kind of mental health facilities, the most concrete, places to be. And yet those were the places where I learned how to read the sky. I knew how to identify, Cassiopeia and the Seven Sisters and things like that. And you would never, I learned so much. I learned how to pick up a turtle gingerly and bring it to the other side of the road and put it back in a creek. On the grounds of a mental institution, so that's not something that people kind of associate with nature. So, and I don't think that's just not even how I grew up. It was and I never was like, oh, city, I won't find nature. It's just there. We're all a part of it as well. So I think you're right. I absolutely love the question, but I think it does more harm to think like, oh, we need to be in nature when it's kind of we already kind of are, that kind of thing. If I can find it, if Ross can find a fig tree, in the middle of Philly, if I can find the stars and turtles, and gosh, those are the first times I was able to catch crawfish with my own bare hands. That was all in a mental facility, like on the edge, actually right through the mental facility, full of concrete and barbed wire and things like that. And I was still, that's actually where I was messing around with catalpas and playing around, messing around. That sounds so bad. And that's where I'd make hats out of catalpa leaves and things like that are, in a parking lot kind of area, so it's all around us basically.
Yeah.
So folks have questions about the collaborative process of putting the poems, going back and forth, and how this starts, as you guys were saying, kind of like, hey, we're tending garden. Here's how I'm doing it. Here's what you're doing. Here's what I have going. Here's what's happening.
Keep going, Roberta. I'm gonna glide and roll and get my charger.
Yeah, go for it. He's on roller skates. And so, a few folks have questions about the collaborative revision process. Was it a collaborative revision process, and what did that, look like? Was it handwritten? Right? Was it email? Like, people want to know what went on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You wouldn't mind talking a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think I first met Aimee. She came out here Aimee, it was 2008, right? Yeah, spring of 2008.
Yeah.
There was a reading, and it was Aimee and Araceli's and Time Jess and Patrick Rosal. It was called the Funk Reading. And they all came out, and that was the first that I had met Aimee. And then I think shortly after that, we decided to do the correspondence, right? Just shortly after that, it was a little bit.
I think then you came to.
That's right.
Fredonia, and then we decided.
That's right.
Oh, no. And then I visited Bloomington one more time, and that's what we decided.
Yeah, and so we're both people who write letters, and we're both people who are like handwrite letters. And so Aimee, the question was like about the sort of process, the actual process of the exchange. And so I think we were like, well, let's just we both wanted to kind of work on poems together and share work. And we because we write by hand, we were like, well, let's do letters. Let's send them in the mail. And that's what we did. So we sent them by mail, handwritten. I don't know, maybe we typed the poems eventually, but the letters were handwritten. But it was snail mail. It was snail mail. What else was there about it? Aimee has very ornate envelopes.
I was just making
a lot of glitter and stickers.
Oh, wait. So are we publishing the letters next? Is that what's happening? I'm just wondering. Okay.
I think probably Russ's poor mail carrier thought he was corresponding with a 6-year-old girl or something with all these like unicorns and glitter fish and all kinds of things. bright colors. I don't know, mail has always brought me joy. You know, I've had pen pals since I was in 2nd grade. But yeah, so the letters itself would be handwritten. Yeah, I think there's something, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. I think almost, correct me if I'm wrong, Ross. I think every one of the revisions though was done, like, I think on the computer.
Yeah.
That was part of the thing, is just knowing that, oh, someone is waiting for my poem. I can't wait too long. You know, and that person just was my friend, but also one of my favorite poets, you know, that kind of thing. So it's just this lucky, amazing thing. But also, I had never collaborated with anybody before, and I'm a type A Capricorn, and I'm not used to giving over any sort of editorial power to anybody, honestly, really. You know, I mean, of course, my editors, I adore, but absolutely, there was moments where, you know, and we left it in. I could share this, Ross, right? Like, there's you know, there's moments in there where Ross is swearing, using a swear word, and I don't prefer that in my poems. And I asked him to take it out, and he was like, actually, no. You know,
What word was it? I can't remember.
no, I'm not gonna point it out. It's somewhere. It's
Sometimes I could get her on that. I could get her on that.
Before you send those out, Roberta, I need to like put a black Sharpie on everything, or like the little black bar, the modesty bar. I want to keep, a little modesty thing on there, and that's fine. You know, it's fine. It's fine. Totally fine.
Pat's blowing up the chat. Just wanted to let y'all know.
Bad.
Oh,
he was there. He knows.
That's here. No, it was not. Although that is also a very naughty word. And was I think, I don't remember what
Naughty.
it was. Totally naughty. Anyway, I let it go that time, and so that's almost unheard of. Anybody who has worked with me knows that like I would normally never have let that go, but Ross is like, nope, it needs to be there, and it did it, kind of, I guess. This is years later. I still can't get over it. But you know, as I was happy that they put the initials, so people know. I think it's obvious, but people know. They'll be like, "Ooh, Aimee's a little spicy today."
In part 2, it's gonna be like, there's gonna be a poem with some balls in it. That's all. That's all. You know, there's gonna be.
Patrick, this is. Get out the chat already. I can see this.
I know. Pat just yanked it right down. He's like, man, I'm gonna fuck this whole thing up right now.
Let me see this.
You guys are being a little too soulful right now.
Oh my gosh.
And so the collaborative, the sort of revisions, they were collaborative. Like, we'd share stuff and then we'd ask questions of each other. But I think we're also poets who go pretty hard at our own work. So like, when we got things kind of into shape, they were probably pretty thoroughly revised. So, I mean, part of the fun story too is like that we went with a part of a little crew out to Malay. We had like 5 days or something, 6 days or something. And I just remember I shouldn't say this.
Why are you laughing?
I shouldn't say this on the computer. I was in grad school at the time. No, it wasn't. I was just out of grad school. But you know, like this. I just remember taking some loaves of bread from Malay, put it like that. I was just, but anyway, so we finished them. Like, we kind of got together for a little residency, and we kind of worked on them further. So it was like letters, and then it was kind of tightening them up and getting them together. And then it was being at a residency for a few days with some other folks, which was wonderful. But just to kind of finish the project, right? That's kind of where we finished it up. We tightened it up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we got to revise it. Yeah, that's right. Gosh, how could I forget Malay? Yeah, we revised it kind of like in person, or knowing that Ross was in the barn somewhere at Malay, and I was in a different studio and being able to come together and read stuff out loud. Yeah. And both of us, we, it's probably no surprise, both of us read our poems out loud when we revise. So we were able to do that together and scratch out like, oh, this isn't working or anything like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for thank you for just going there with that and sharing that, because I think we all like we wanted that, right? We wanted that.
Wanted what?
That whole conversation that was so good. Something that I try and do is remain an anti-capitalist as I function with Get Fresh Books Publishing, right? To very much treat it like a garden, right? And see what it demands of me. Like, okay, what's coming up here now? Like, what's happening here? Like, I'll never forget, Ross told me, no, leave the weeds. They're helping. They're helping. And I never looked at the weeds the same again. The more weeds that came up, the more different they looked. The more varieties I got, the happier I was. They were surrounding all my and the vegetables were like flourishing and growing. And in everything you guys talk about, handwriting letters to each other, making envelopes by hand, putting that glitter on there and those stars and those things. There's even you explaining that process of the community garden and just how it was like, hey, let's do it. Okay, fuck it. What do we do? I don't know. Let's one thing at a time, right?
Yeah.
Moving away from that capitalist kind of mentality, right? Is something so many people want to do. Yet it seems so hard for them, right? It seems like so hard. I don't know if you kind of want to share just any little bit about how you go about doing that for one of these not an altruism, but like my motto lately is like, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Like that's how I step out of capitalism. Once I realize that I'm getting Mr. Publisher Business Bob Dabalina dude, I'm like, whoa, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Like, and that's it. And I'm not a capitalist. It's not why I'm doing this. So maybe if you could share something like that with the folks in the last couple of minutes, I think that would be really dope.
I think, gosh, that's such a beautiful question, Roberto. And Ross and I could probably do a whole, essay on this together. But I would say there's no one size fits all answer because everybody's at different points, right? And comfort levels and what they can do and who they're responsible for and what they need, who else they need to tend to as well. I guess I would just say, I think just one rule of thumb, it's not even a rule, that's just how it is. It's just, I think how Ross and I have been able to, and Ross jump in obviously if you want to correct anything, but I think one of the things that Ross and I have been able to do for 20 years in this whole like publishing thing is, one of the things that we stay true to is our roots, not to bring in another gardening metaphor, but also there's only so much, like I don't think either of us can fully enjoy whatever kind of success, whatever tangible success we have, unless other people are also partaking of it too. You know what I mean? Like I know I can't, I know Ross can't at all. And so, yes, absolutely. Get your, work to, work for the good of others, work for yourself for sure, but also turn around and reach back and make sure others who could use that extra boost get it. This was not a monumental thing. It's one small tiny thing that Ross and I can do. Like we are not getting anything from this chapbook. We picked, actually one of the things that Ross and I were doing before this is I was asking Ross, let's pick a chapbook press with all of our knowledge of chapbook presses out there. What is a press that could use that could use sales from our book to publish others, you know, that kind of thing. And what was it? And I'm so grateful for Ross to bringing in Get Fresh on this. I don't think I would ever have wanted it any other way. You know, there's no point right now where I need to make money off of this beautiful friendship thing with Ross. I already felt weird doing that in the first place. And it's my utter joy and happiness when a student of mine or a student of Ross's gets something with a little bit of extra help, or, you know, I don't know. I'm rambling now, but I think it's so unnatural. I guess let me put it this way. It's so unnatural to be alone, like, I'm gonna get mine and that's it. It's dog eat dog. You know, that is such an unnatural way to live, to say like, you know, America first, we're, you know, let's make us great again. Let's get my literary reputation established before anybody else's. And then maybe if I have energy, that's the most unnatural way to live. Birds don't do that. Frogs don't do that. They're all connected to each other. So it is really weird and creepy when I see writers who ought to know better act so unnatural and don't turn around and try to mentor, don't try to, you know, put someone else's name in the spotlight. That is the most unnatural thing. I don't know. And I know Ross feels that way too, tenfold.
Yeah, I just even saying the question, Roberto, is like, so to me, it's so kind of nourishing just to hear the question,
Mm-hmm.
and to also understand that the question implies need, like a need for collaboration and study. Because, you know, frankly, like in the midst of this, we're so tangled up in the shitstorm that knowing how not to do the horrible shit is challenging. And it requires a ton of collaboration and study and practice. And you know, like, it seems weird that you know, like what Aimee was saying, like, I was just thinking this today. I was like, you know, there's a kind of orthodoxy that would suggest that hoarding is in fact a natural quality. It's just like how people are. And I think that's just wrong. I think it's actually just not true. And I think there's plenty of probably, you know, other, you know, I'm sure there's other kinds of whatever science or something saying that now too, you know, that more of that. But it's just clearly, it's just, in my opinion, it's not wrong. And I mean, it's wrong. And the truth is that our inclination is to share. And I feel like it can feel a little tricky to figure out how to share in the midst of a profoundly alienated, kind of the ways that the culture makes us feel alienated and feel like discrete individual creatures too. You know, not creatures actually, discrete from nature, discrete from one another, discrete from the other creatures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As opposed to sort of the hallelujah, you know.
Yeah.
Once you're in the hallelujah, it's like, hey, take what you want. Like what you got, I got. What I got, you got, you know. But I do agree that it's a sort of perpetual practice. And to be sure, you know, I have no idea, but I have some ideas, you know. And, you know, your press, you know, this press is an idea. Like, oh, okay. This is one of the ideas, you know. I want to shout, you know, because Pat was just out there yelling at us in the chat. He just self-published a book called Atang, and it's just, it's, you know, this is an astonishing book, and you go to his website and you push a button and you can have that book. And that, you know, that book is, you know, it's a beautiful. Good, someone put it in. It's an astonishing book. And it's also like, what is your inclination when you've been given something? Probably your inclination is to be like, oh, we can give things. Oh, this beautiful thing that I made, I can give it away. Shit. What's that do to your life? You know? And so I just want to like hold Pat up for a minute to be like, what a teacher for that. What a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm like, sorry, I'm talking and snapping and doing it, and I'm muted. Like, yes, absolutely. Oh my God, yes.
It just feels good, honestly. It's you feel less alone when you do that, and so many of us are alone. I have a house full of rowdy boys, you know, that kind of thing. But it makes me feel so good to make others feel seen or heard. It's like contagious. I don't know how. I honestly don't know. Like, I'm not really friends with anybody who doesn't do that, because I could just feel their negative energy, and wanting to be selfish is just not something that I'm kind of a part of. I don't know. It just feels so good. It feels so good to share, and that's what we've been taught since we were kids. I think most of us, right?
Yeah, but still too, like, because I am someone who can identify with the sort of hoarding mentality. You know, I know that that's in there. You're like, I mean, everything we do, like going to school and being good at school and being the best at all that, that's all part of the same thing.
Sure.
So when I think of like, when we kind of like, oh shit, we are really inculcated into this thing that it's so hard when you hear someone who's like, I don't care, I just gave it away. You're like, wait a second, you know, or you're like, you what? Like, you're not just gonna die now, you know? Or so that's part of, I'm with you, Aimee, and I'm also like, but I witness in myself.
You're right.
You know, that in myself, which is why it requires, you know, being like, well, what do we do? Should we make some money off this thing, or should we try to share it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's purposeful. It's not like, yeah, you're right. So I stand corrected. It's not like, I mean, absolutely. Are you kidding me? I thrive on getting all my little gold stars in class. That was me. I loved being that. So it is a practice, though. It is very much a conscious thing, though. Like, who else can I bring up? Who else can I pull up to the table? Yeah, so I guess that's what I meant more, is like, make it a practice. And you don't have to have much to make it a practice. I know very much, what is the name now? Dr. Thunder. Dr. Thunder was my treat at the end of a long, busy day. And the reason why I know what Dr. Thunder is the generic version of Dr. Pepper. And the reason why I know that is because I was broke as all get out. And still, I know that even though like a one can, this is how it's kind of ridiculous. That was my one like treat at the end of a hard week of waitressing. This is like in between undergrad and grad school, so dirt broke. But I also knew that if I got this $3 bouquet, at the time it's $3, which was a lot, to the sweet woman who lived down the hall, who lived all by herself and had nobody ever visited her except for me. That made me feel, even by giving that $3 bouquet away, made me feel, I know this sounds cheesy, but it's the truth. Anybody who knows me knows it's the truth. Made me feel like $1 million. And I don't know. And so that proportionally $3 was huge. You know, I didn't even spend that on myself for extra stuff. But it just feels so good. It feels so good to do it. And I think there's other ways to be rich that we haven't even yet talked about. Rich for sure with healthcare, and rich for sure with insurance and money, but there's also ways of feeling rich in your heart that don't require just hardly anything. And rich in time. So there's other ways of being rich and being, the final thing I want to say, there's other ways of, if you're not able to share money or wealth or influence, there's other ways of sharing richness. And that is sharing your time, sharing your attention, really checking in on someone. Even if you think, oh, they don't need it, Who doesn't want a letter in the mail? Who doesn't want to see your friend's handwriting, your name, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know that person, you know, I don't want to know that person who doesn't feel joy and delight. I am floating on clouds when I see my name written in the handwriting of my friend. So that's something that you could do that costs, what is a stamp now? 40 cents, 55, I don't know what the stamp is. I just buy the forever stamp so they don't have the number. It costs a stamp. It costs one stamp to make someone's day.
Yeah. Someone in the chat said, mentioned Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, and I want to
for
second
sure.
and third and fourth that, for like, you know, great teacher on gratitude and the profound anti-capitalist quality of gratitude. It will Fuck the shit up. Shit up.
The swear words again, Ross.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
Guys, oh my God, thank you so much. We're like an hour and 10 minutes in.
I think Ross, were you getting up to skate?
Yeah, can we get
I'm
some?
just getting a little bit more to the light. I could just it's getting dark in here.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful to have you guys. You guys, I mean, Aimee, welcome to our kind of family. We have an extended Drew family, and we have a Get Fresh Books family, and a poetry family, and you
Any friend of Ross's is automatically a friend of mine. So I knew we were in good hands when Ross suggested Get Fresh. And please, folks, Get Fresh does so much for people of color, for indie publishing. Throw your eyeballs their way on their website. Do check out Darla's. I just got Darla's not too long ago. Gorgeous writing. I know it's not National Poetry Month anymore, but it's National Poetry Year for many of us here. So yeah, thank you, Get Fresh, so much.
No doubt. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody so that we can give a big round of applause, or I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself. Go for it. And you can give a huge round of applause to Ross.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Roz, Aimee, I love you guys. Thank you so much. Everyone out there, thank you for joining us and for spending time with us this evening. Have a great night. Be safe. Take care of yourselves. We're not out of the woods yet, y'all. So just please be careful out there. And mad love, spread love. It's really easy and it makes you feel so good. Like I echo Aimee's sentiments. Mad love and good night, everybody.